Welcome to the channel, everyone. If you're new to the channel, my name is AJ. I'm an orthopedic surgeon in my professional life and a pilot for fun. My family and I fly a 1979 turbo Piper Aztec, which is a 6-place twin-engine light aircraft. We've been sharing our aviation-themed travel videos for nearly a year now, and for those of you that have stopped by and either thumbed up our videos or subscribed, we certainly appreciate it very much. Though we don't do this YouTube thing for a living, we are always happy to see others enjoying our content. We hope our channel inspires you to wholeheartedly chase your own dreams, have your own adventures, and generally get out there and live your life. If your dreams include aviation, even better. Well, we missed the last 2 weeks of video postings, and some of our regular viewers are curious what happened to our regular postings. Truth is, the plane has been in its annual inspection. For those of you that are new to aviation, an annual inspection is required yearly and consists of a complete and comprehensive inspection to determine the condition of an aircraft and its maintenance needs. This was our aircraft's first annual inspection since purchase, and needless to say, it's generally considered to be the most expensive inspection, as surprises arise right after one purchases a used aircraft generally. Since it is an annual inspection, we've been reminiscing about this past year and decided for this video, we're going to show a brief recap of some of our favorite moments from the past year, as well as the flight to and from Sebastian for the inspection. On the flight up, the kids are coming along for the ride. However, for the flight back home, I'm going to be alone for obvious safety reasons, as planes tend to have an issue right out of their annual if they're going to have one. After that's completed and we're back home, I'm going to review the invoice so you can see what's really involved. Just to be clear, while cost is always a concern for all pilots, and while this is expensive, I'm very grateful to my mechanic and the work he and his team perform. You're the best, Clyde, and you're worth every penny. Thank you very much. Without further ado, here's the video.
In a little bit. Love you. Love you.
You want to do one circle? I want you to keep it exactly where it's at, okay? I'll help if I need to, but try to maintain that altitude and turn to the right. Keep turning. Keep turning, we're going all the way around. Bring it around town. Keep bringing it around. Good, 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 good. You're right at 1500. I love what you're doing. Just keep the turn in. Look out the front, look out the side, see what you're looking at, see what you're turning towards, look for other airplanes, check out the fancy boats. Keep turning. I want you to line up perfectly with the beach, so you're going to have to turn aggressively. Keep going. Keep going on that turn. Keep going. Line it up. Line it up. Good. I got it. You did an excellent job. Sebastian, traffic Aztec 2441 Mike is 6 miles to the east-southeast, inbound for full stop landing runway 23, Sebastian. Alright, fuel pumps on. Gear going down. Fixtures, props, switches.
Skydiving in 2 minutes over Sebastian Airport. Use caution, Sebastian.
Sebastian, traffic Aztec 2441 Mike is turning final runway 23, full stop, Sebastian. Sebastian, traffic Aztec 2441 Mike is exiting the runway now, runway 23. Sebastian, traffic Aztec 2441 Mike is clear, runway 235. Sebastian, Municipal Aztec 2441 Mike leaving the FBO, taxiing via Charlie to departure in runway 5. Sebastian, Municipal Aztec 2441 Mike entering runway 5 for depart, leaving the area to the south.
Stuart Tower confirmation, Lima, time 2150, Zulu observation.
Aircraft on, it's been stuck mic on tower frequency back and forth here. If you're checking your radio, don't do it on the tower frequency.
Hazardous weather available on flight service station frequency.
Somebody has the ATIS in the back, they've been keyed up back and forth about 20 minutes now.
Runs out of service. Hazardous weather available on flight service station frequency.
Tower 1, we're still getting it too, so I don't know if it's coming from something else on the ground or what.
Number 295. Visual approach to use, landing and departing runway 1. This information, Lima.
Stuart Tower, Aztec 2441 Mike, we are 10 miles to the north, inbound for full stop with information, Lima.
Lima.
Aztec 41 Mike, report the left base runway 12.
2150, Zulu up.
We'll report left base runway 12, forward Mike. Stuart Tower, Aztec 2441 Mike, turning left base midfield.
Aztec 41 Mike, runway 12, clear to land.
Runway 12, cleared to land, forward Mike. Stuart Tower, Aztec 2441 Mike, exiting at Charlie, going to Stuart Jet Center.
Aztec 4 Mike, roger. Stay on frequency, left turn Alpha, taxi to the Jet Center.
On frequency, left on Alpha, taxi to Jet Center, forward Mike, thanks.
There he is. Woo! Welcome back, Aztec.
Alright, so on the screen we have the actual invoice from my annual inspection. It's actually a 3-page inspection invoice. Feel free to go through it. We're going to go over it together with the big charges. But the first item here is the actual inspection charge. Okay, so that's a pretty big one, sitting at the over on the top right at $2,600. When I dropped off the plane, it was due for an oil change, so the next several things here all have to do with the oil change. As part of the annual, the ELT has to be inspected, and I had some fluctuations in my fuel flows. when I dropped off the plane, where as we were flying along I would see fuel flow raise and decrease without a good explanation. So at least in this case, Clyde was able to clean up the mechanisms, get the fuel flows corrected, and on the flight home there were no issues, so I think that problem has been fixed. One of the big items that needed to be addressed was a leaking fuel bladder. So the fuel is actually contained within the wings inside of 4 separate fuel bladders, and there's connections between the bladders and the engines. I noticed a little bit of fuel leaking out on the undersurface of the wing. I wasn't sure where that fuel leak was coming from, so that's a pretty big problem. When we dropped off the plane, it was one of the squawks that I had Clyde address. A squawk is just an item that's not as it should be. And he was able to find leaking mechanisms and get the fuel tanks corrected. That was $500 off there to the side. That was a pretty big one. I had a probe failure just before annual. Now, both of the engines have several probes for EGT and turbine inlet temperature. So where it says TIT probe over here, that's the turbine inlet temperature probe. That probe needed to be fixed and was fixed during the annual. We had a flap indication error. So as we're flying along, sometimes flaps are fully up, but the gauge was reading 1/4 to 1/2 flaps extended. Now obviously that's not correct, so it was another one of the squawks that I had Clyde address while we were out. The biggest issue, and an issue that I had from the very beginning of when we picked up the plane, was drooping landing gear. So we would be flying along, and half an hour to an hour into the flight, when you think everything is fine, the landing gear would physically start to lower. And so on a Piper Aztec, the landing gear is hydraulically driven. And so this was checked out several months back, and there was a leaking valve which was correctable. But in addition to the leaking valve in the hydraulic system, there was also a leaking power pack. Now, the power pack is a big ordeal. It's a problem that's common amongst many of the Piper Aztecs, but essentially it's the hydraulic power module in the center of the column in front of the plane where all the levers are attached, and then it's the systems that are attached to that are going to be both the gear and the flaps. So with a leaking power pack, we sent off an extra power pack that happened to come when I purchased the plane for refurbishment, and once that power pack was rebuilt, it was sent to Clyde. Clyde's been holding on to it till the annual, and he took out the faulty power pack, put in the refurbished pack. That is, if you look at it online, up to a 15 to 30 hour job. Now Clyde knows what he's doing. He charged me for 15 hours to get the old pack in, and then the old pack out and the new pack in. But that was another big component of this year's annual. All right, so this brings us to page 2 of the annual inspection. So on page 2, the first item at the top is the heater decay test. These Janitrol heaters, believe it or not, live in the nose of the plane and run off of the aviation fuel. I don't love the Janitrol heaters. A lot of pilots don't feel good about lighting a fire inside their plane while they're flying, but nevertheless, the heater is good, the heater works, the heater was tested and is ready to return to service. I frankly feel more comfortable making my family wear jackets, and we do fine with that, but who knows, maybe one day I'll actually use the heater. There were a couple minor issues with seats sticking in position and a light not lighting on one of my 2 fuel pump switches. Those are more or less negligible items. There were some torque bolts and expected wear and tear items all throughout the second page. There was a crack in the bell crank where the landing light attaches. That was a relatively simple repair from what I understand. That piece was taken off, a weld repair was performed. It looked good, so that was one of the bigger items on the second page. And then we get to the bottom of the page and things get quite expensive again. Brake linings are worn out, and then the magnetos. The magnetos are providing the spark to the engine. Similar to an alternator if you're more familiar with car parts. But nevertheless, the magnetos need a 500-hour inspection, and that's not something that can be performed in-house with Clyde. So, on a Piper Aztec, there are 2 mags per engine, 2 engines, 4 magnetos. 2 of one type, 2 of a different type. So we have the labor hours here to remove those 4 magnetos, and then we have 1, 2, 3 mags on this page and the final mag on the next page, where those were sent off, inspected, and sent back ready to be reinstalled on the plane. Okay, that brings us to page 3, the final page. We have the last magneto here at the top at $401. We have, again, several concerning items, like a bolt found lying in the bottom of the cowling. Don't know where that came from or what it does, but I'm really appreciative that Clyde found it and put it back where it goes. We have some air filters, relief valve filters that are due for replacement. That was addressed. And then finally, the airworthiness directives. There's a massive list on every plane of all the airworthiness directives that are put out. These are more or less things to correct, instructions from the FAA for things that have to be specifically inspected, specifically looked at, areas that are known to be potential problems that need to be evaluated. Clyde performed a review of all the airworthiness directives, made sure we were in compliance with all the airworthiness directives, and that was the completion of an otherwise fairly clean annual inspection for a plane that had just been bought off the used market. Now, when I bought the plane, a pre-buy inspection was done. So I did have somebody else take a look at the plane in advance to make sure there were no major issues. We've flown the plane for about 160 hours in the past year, so we've kept it flying. We've known there's a few little squawks here and there that don't affect the airworthiness of the plane. But the annual inspection's the chance to get all of those things fixed. So again, appreciative to Clyde. He's got the plane in tip-top condition. The flight home went flawlessly. We had no issues with either of the engines. Any of the mechanicals, everything seems to be working as it should. And for a 1979 plane, in its first annual after purchase, a $10,000 annual inspection is frankly not bad. We are thrilled to have the plane back. We've got some adventures coming up, and we should be back to our flight videos here within a few weeks. Hope you've enjoyed. I hope the annual inspection video was informative, and we'll see you soon.